We want to solve family separation. I don't want children taken away from parents. We need Democrat support.
The president alone can fix it with this flick of a pen.
DOJ Inspector General confirming he is in fact investigating anti-Trump FBI agent Peter Strzok.
The seminal question is, why do they still have security clearances? You don't have a security clearance, you're done that day. And they've known about this for a long time.
The United States is officially withdrawing from the UN Human Rights Council.
This decision, in many respects, has been decades in the making.
A Chicago public school principal outraged parents by inviting anti-police extremists to speak to elementary school students on career day.
Anti-police bias seems not only here in Chicago, but across the nation. And it's dangerous.
Right after he spoke to a group of business leaders, he took a moment to hug the American flag. He did that as "You can't always get what you want" played in the background.
Eight o'clock on this, the first day of summer. The summer solstice a little later on in the day. Thanks very much for joining us. Come on over, Ted. Walk on over. Fox and Friends, hour 3 for this very busy winning Wednesday.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us. We're glad to have you.
Yeah, rudeness through the roof. I mean, whether it's in the halls of the Capitol, whether it's in a restaurant, whether it's at the award show, everywhere, or especially in social media, every so-called adult, famous or noteworthy, seems as though they want to show off by cursing. I think the latest example was the President of the United States walking into the Capitol, and he's getting cursed at by an intern on Capitol Hill. There's no sense of...
a female intern yelling at him, yelling the F word, profanities. Listen to this.
And this is as he walked past the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, they were heckling him.
It's unbelievable.
I think if we turn the sound up, can we hear some of that? Okay, so that is somebody who, the last comment right there, that was something from, presumed to be an intern. But the president yesterday, he quadrupled down. He said the administration would not end the policy of separating families at the border. He said essentially at that business roundtable yesterday, he said there are right now 2 options in the country. When somebody comes into the country illegally, let them go into the country, open borders essentially, or go ahead and arrest them and prosecute them. But he said he would like a third way, and that is for Congress to do something, figure out a legislative fix so that families are not separated at the border.
Well, there are 2 immigration bills. One is to build the wall, and the other is to solve the border crisis and family separation. And then Congressman Mark Meadows has also constructed a bill, a backup proposal, just in case the border immigration bills fail, and that would actually stop those family separations.
Here's President Trump yesterday on not wanting to see the family separated. Behind closed doors, he knows this is not only something he doesn't want to do, he also knows it's bad politics. Mark Walker, a congressman from North Carolina, says we got 4 or 5 days to solve it. And right now, the pressure's on the Republicans to solve it, but in a way that addresses the problem. And that's the surge of illegals of all shapes, sizes, and nations at our border. Listen.
We have a chance. We want to solve this problem. We want to solve family separation. I don't want children taken away from parents. And when you prosecute the parents for coming in illegally, which should happen, you have to take the children away. Now, we don't have to prosecute them, but then we're not prosecuting them for coming in illegally. That's not good. We want to end the border crisis by finally giving us the legal authorities and the resources to detain and remove illegal immigrant families altogether and bring them back to their country.
All right, so that was midday. Then later in the day, he went up to Capitol Hill, and I think we've got some images that are just into the Fox News Channel newsroom. Apparently, during the meeting, he called for broad immigration reform. He said his message was, we got to pass something. He said, we have to take care of separation. It's too nasty, too nasty. When he left that meeting, I believe it was at that point, the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, a couple of members heckled him. Despite that soundbite we ran earlier, there was no inappropriate, and there they are right there, there was no inappropriate word used at the president. They were just making their case clear. They wanted to make sure he understood their concern.
Border Patrol says that the kids are separated from their parents for 20 days. They said that they're treating these kids with dignity and respect, that that's their job. They need help from Congress. They say that many are smuggling terrorists, dangerous weapons, dangerous narcotics, fentanyl, and cocaine, and they have to find a way to stop the organized crime. No one wants these kids separated from their parents. Right. But it's just a matter of finding a solution and to make sure that those coming in are lawful and safe and they aren't bringing in drugs or they aren't MS-13.
And part of it is, the kids and the families aren't doing that, but the others looking to smuggle in the cartels are seeing the distraction that the Border Patrol has by these people saying, take me, I would like asylum, or I want to be found by a border agent, and they're going in because they're not getting the pressure on them. They're not being surveilled. They're taking advantage of that. Meanwhile, Chuck Schumer weighed in. He wants to see political advantage out of this. He wants the president to do something, not interested in doing what he's supposed to do, and that is be a lawmaker. He says you and not the law are responsible for this family separation policy. Donald Trump, GOP senators and members of your own administration have confirmed this. You can reverse this terrible act in just a few minutes, but you refuse to lift a finger.
So he wants to keep the focus on the President of the United States. And at thehill.com, they were wondering, how long will Democrats stick to that particular position of, let the president fix it if the president refuses to change his mind?
Are there enough Republicans where they could pass their own bill without the Democrats?
Now, at this point, it doesn't look like either of the bills that currently we know broad parts of it can pass Congress.
Yeah.
Can't get out of the House.
But one of the ways to do it is for the president to find one he likes and say, this is my bill that I think can pass, and I'll get behind it. That'll be a signal to his caucus to get behind it. And he also said, in the Senate, I suddenly have these Democratic senators in red states who are my new best friends. How many do we have? Right. 6? So if you have everybody, if you've got 51 voting and you got 6 that want to be my best friends, then you got a couple that get over the top that want to do something responsible.
But Brian, look at what Chuck Schumer says. He says he's not interested in a legislative fix. So do you think he's going to give him the thumbs up? Go ahead, you Democrats, vote with.
Well, he might not have those.
Does that make sense to anyone? He's complaining, saying that this president is separating the parents from the kids, but yet he has an opportunity and a responsibility to fix the problem, and he's saying he's not going to do it.
He wants the administration to go back to the policy of Barack Obama, where these laws are on the books, but it's all about enforcement. I mean, we had the Attorney General of the United States come out, I think, a month or so ago, and he said we're going to start enforcing the laws of the land. There's going to be enforcement on the border, which we hadn't seen in a while. So Chuck Schumer and Democrats had it to say they want the president to say, you know what, until we figure it out with a new law, let's go ahead. We're not going to enforce it.
Yeah, they say that this goes back to 97 with this Flores Amendment. The government's obligated to release migrant children into custody, either their parents and relatives. When those rules were out, those rules have become a powerful magnet for illegal migration. This, according to Tom Homan, who's going to be joining us in 30 minutes. As parents sent their children by hiring smugglers or bringing their children with them to leave in custody, it gets them there faster because eventually they'll go meet their kids and they are suddenly in our country.
When they are their children, because there are reports that of the 13,000 or 12,000 kids being held by the Department of Homeland Security, only 2,000 came into this country with somebody they were related to.
Right.
The others, it sounds like they either were brought in by smugglers or else somebody thought, you know what, if I had a kid with me, I'll be released in the country. Well, that isn't happening right now.
There's 2,325 minors separated from their parents right now, and they'll see about the reunification.
All right, another news, turning to your other headlines. Outrage in California. A water main break flooding the Mandalay Bay Hotel in Las Vegas. Look at this.
Oh, my God.
Thousands of gallons of water pouring onto the first floor of the convention center, forcing 1,000 people to evacuate. Crews are now working to clean up that mess. Thankfully, no one was hurt. And a father and a son recreate an incredible photo 20 years later. Officer Gould and his son, they posed for that picture in the police car back in 1998, the one on the left, with the caption, "When I get bigger, I'm going to be my dad's partner and catch bad guys and burglars." The two recently posed again, this time Officer Gould's son, all grown up, and a King County Sheriff's deputy in Washington State.
That is awesome.
Isn't that great?
Fantastic. Like father, like son. All right, straight ahead on this Wednesday, the United States now officially out of the United Nations Human Rights Council.
For too long, the Human Rights Council has been a protector of human rights abusers and a cesspool of political bias.
Well, our next guest says the Trump administration made absolutely the right move.
Plus, are you a liberal driving through Texas? This sign has a message. They don't want you to stop. Is that over the line or perfectly okay?
They prejudged the outcome of the Hillary Clinton investigation before the investigation ended, and these exact same FBI agents and attorneys prejudged the outcome of the Russia investigation before it even began.
Do you believe this text shows political bias?
I think as we found, it clearly shows a biased state of mind.
Do you believe the political bias shown by this text had an effect on the initiation of the Russia investigation?
That's a matter we've got under review and are looking at right now.
Right. Pick up the pace a little. Molly Hemingway, senior editor with The Federalist and Fox News contributor, joins us now. Molly, you saw most of the testimony yesterday. It was 5 hours, 70 people, 5 minutes each. The most scintillating for him came from Goodlatte and Trey Gowdy, in my humble opinion. What do we now know by Michael Horowitz's comments to those questions?
Yeah, one of the interesting things is that when that IG report came out, a lot of people wanted to spin it as saying that they didn't have a problem with bias at the FBI. Well, in yesterday's testimony and in the day before in the Senate, the Inspector General, Michael Horowitz, repeatedly talked about the problems posed by the brazen and extreme bias that some of the key agents in the Clinton email probe, which happened to be the same agents who were involved in the Russia probe, exhibited. And while it might not have posed too much of a problem with the Clinton email probe, or while he couldn't determine whether their bias in favor of Hillary Clinton actually impacted their decisions, he was reticent to say that when it got to the Russia probe. That's under investigation now, and he specifically said bias was problematic for the Russia probe. I mean, so that's interesting.
Right. Molly, you know, if you read the 500 pages, even the executive review, they use terms like FBI attorney number 2, agent number 5. It's not just Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. We did find out 2 names yesterday that would be worth pursuing. Kevin Kleinsmith was attorney number 2, and Sally Moyer, agent number 5. Also, horrible things about people that follow Donald Trump, and that he's a dope, and they use an R word to describe his mental capacity, as well as his followers. If this was a script in a Law and Order episode, I would say too deliberate. Where's the subtlety? This is unbelievable, and I just wonder how much else needs to be recovered.
Right. And of course, one of these people involved in this was praising Hillary Clinton, and he or she was the person that was going in to interview her about her mishandling of classified information. That is really problematic when you see people having that level of bias. But I was a little concerned that we didn't just get these names. First off, public service does not give you protection from being held accountable for what you're doing. I think people have a right to know who you are and where you currently are. We learned that 2 of the 3 other people, other than Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, were also involved in the Russia probe. We don't know who they were and if they're still involved and what's being done within the FBI to make sure that bias doesn't further impact that investigation.
Right. You got to wonder, too, why Peter Strzok's still working there. Lisa Page is gone. Baker's gone. Comey's gone. McCabe is gone. Others have left. The whole higher echelon that's been running the FBI has just been left on their own or been fired, and one is on a criminal referral. But Peter Strzok walked out but still getting paid. Why is that?
Well, and not just that. I mean, the last 10 months, I think he's been working in HR, is what I think they've told us. Human Human Resources seems like an odd place to send your number 2 in counterintelligence, who was caught having an affair with a colleague that has to violate so many FBI personnel policies, to have been sent to a safe place in Human Resources, and then to get now what seems like a paid vacation is not holding him accountable for his missteps.
Molly, I just can't believe, and the president referred to it yesterday, people are not covering this more. You don't have, it's not conjecture and hyperbole. These are texts and facts. And are you surprised there's not more coverage?
Yes, as you pointed out, all the top leadership has had to step down or been fired for this. This isn't an imaginary thing. This is happening at our FBI, and it seems like something that people left and right should care about, having accountability at our nation's top law enforcement agency and making sure that we can trust them when it comes to political investigations after they made so many missteps for both the Hillary Clinton email probe and the Trump-Russia probe.
Yeah, you just wonder where it's going now, because next week or the week after, we're going to get Peter Strzok there. Next week, we're going to get the Deputy Attorney General out in front. And the war that he is having, Rod Rosenstein, and with the leadership in the House is epic. In fact, they are saying this week, if you don't turn over things, we're going to look to impeach you. And they're not turning over things. This could end up with a judge this week.
Right. People talk about constitutional crises. I think this is the closest we are to a constitutional crisis, the refusal of the Department of Justice and FBI to respond to congressional oversight. It is very important that they do so, and it's important that we have means to hold them accountable. And it's also important that Peter Strzok, we know he's biased against Trump. That's a given. When he's testifying in front of Congress, I hope they ask a lot of questions about that Russia probe and who all was involved and how the FBI handled that.
Molly, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, straight ahead. What's the real story about what's happening at that border? Acting ICE Director Thomas Homan, seen it all. He'll explain it to us. Plus, our next guest is a liberal who just graduated from Williams College and wrote a book about the importance of listening to everyone, no matter what their political view is. He gives us his unique perspective about him, his life, and what he knows. He's coming our way, uncensored.
Got some quick headlines for you. First up, the world's largest airline getting back on track following a week full of cancellations. A computer glitch forced American Airlines regional carrier PSA to cancel about 2,500 flights. Look at all those people. The bug impacted crew scheduling and flight tracking systems, and they hope they are back in action. And if you're headed to the airport, you might want to consider checking your bag. The TSA is kicking off a new campaign reminding travelers how much powder they can carry in carry-on bags. The current limit put into place last year is 335 milliliters, which is about the size of a soda can. They're mostly concerned about improvised explosive devices for obvious reasons.
Colleges across the country could learn a thing or two from our next guest.
He describes himself as a liberal, a Democratic liberal. He's a student whose talks of free speech has more than 1 million views online to this.
I look out at what's happening on college campuses and I see the anger and I get it. But what I wish I could tell people is that it's worth the discomfort, it's worth listening, and that we're stronger, not weaker, because of it. When I think about my experiences with uncomfortable learning.
That's his TED Talk right there. Zachary R. Wood is the author of a brand new book just out called Uncensored, My Life and Uncomfortable Conversations at the Intersection of Black and White America. He joins us now. Good morning to you,
Hey, Zach.
Great to be with you.
Great to see you.
You're at Williams College, an elite university, and you're in charge of booking speakers.
Yes.
And you talk about, I booked Charles Murray, the bell curve. I disagree with him. You're a liberal Democrat. You think it's important for people to listen, and you realize that early. Why?
So for me, it actually started with my mother. My mother had schizophrenia, and that forced me to be very empathetic at a young age. And she also stressed the importance of seeing things in their full complexity.
And so you invited these people on. You had nothing in common with them, but you sat there and you listened to them. But Zach, when you look at what's going on America's campuses these days, where let's say Ben Shapiro is invited to campus, suddenly there's outrage on campus, and he gets uninvited because they don't want to hear a different point of view. What are those schools missing?
I think what they're missing is the fact that it's going to be important for students to develop the ability to articulate why it is that they disagree with people. I think that's a skill you're going to need no matter what you do after you graduate from college. So I think it's important for administrations to not just promote social tolerance, which is the idea that you feel welcome and included, but also political tolerance.
We can learn so much from this. Look at what's happening in D.C., where you have lawmakers, you have interns screaming the F word to our president on the Hill, inside the chambers. It's just, everyone is so angry and mad at one another. What's your advice to the lawmakers? I mean, you have Chuck Schumer who's saying this is up to the president. I'm not even going to look at legislation about separating moms from their kids. What's your message to the folks in Washington?
My message would be that we got to do a better job of listening. And we have to see where we can find common ground in order to move forward. Even if it's small, even if it's difficult, even if it's arduous, I think we have to strive for that.
Right. And I also think you're not only listening, but sometimes you're open. When it comes to health care, there are certain things about the conservatives are proposing that you like. A little bit about your background. You grow up with a mom that's schizophrenic, but a wonderful person. You end up having to leave her because it was too stressful, going to your dad, economically more challenged, going to a private school, mostly white, going to a Williams College, very elite. How did that form who you are today?
Well, one thing that it did was I had to always be open to adapting to a new environment, to being around people who were from different backgrounds. And I had to make an effort to understand them, to sit down with them, to talk to them. And that became a part of who I was, always trying to connect with people, always trying to find out what was it that motivated people? What was it that inspired them? What gave them joy? Because if you understand that, then you're better able to work cohesively.
Sure, you never got the anger. A lot of people get angry. You know, why has society been so tough on me? Why is my mom like this? Why is some people say America is too skewed against African Americans? You don't have that.
No, there's no anger. For me, I think anger gets in the way of building understanding. I think it gets in the way of empathy. And so what I try to do first is listen. And then after you listen, you can explain where it is that you disagree. You can see and flesh out what those differences are.
So you weren't only at the intersection of black and white America, like the title of your book, but you were at the intersection of rich and poor America.
Yes, absolutely. There were big economic differences, especially when I started going to a private school in 4th grade. It was very apparent to me that the overwhelming majority of students there lived very affluent lifestyles.
And how did that impact you?
It was almost like a culture shock in the beginning because I knew I was going to an elite institution.
I knew it's going to be like a TV show.
Right. You know, but then when you go over a friend's house and you see a mansion with 8 bedrooms, it's something.
Where is America with race today?
I think that America has made significant progress, but I think there's a lot more that needs to be done in terms of creating opportunity for those in low-income communities, specifically for youth, so that they can imagine different possibilities for their
mentors.
Mentors, absolutely.
What do you say to the people that are watching that are down on their luck and they have a tendency to blame other people? What's your advice?
I would say that try to find, are there avenues within your community? I think oftentimes we forget that there are things on a municipal, on a local level, if there are opportunities there, if there are things that you can take advantage of, if not, trying to seek out those opportunities. But I think it's also really incumbent on us as a society to think about what else we can do in terms of providing greater access.
Because if you don't have the great family, what do? You got to help those people out that don't have it.
Sometimes not having the great family pushes you even harder, doesn't it?
It pushes you even harder. I mean, at a local level, things like churches, there are certain communal institutions that I think we can resort to, that we can think about how they can play a role.
Well, you got to admire the way you run your life. You don't get angry, you listen, and you go from there.
And he also wrote a book and just graduated college. I mean, my goodness, Uncensored is out. Go grab it. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
What's your ultimate goal? President one day?
I want to run for president.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. You heard it here.
Save this VHS tape.
All right. Thanks, Zach. All right. Next up on this Wednesday, she is supposed to be fighting for good. So why is a Democrat showing off this poster of Wonder Woman lassoing a police officer? That's not good.
Plus, what's the real story about what's happening down at the border? Acting ICE Director Thomas Homan joins us live next.
We have a chance. We want to solve this problem. We want to solve family separation. We want to end the border crisis by finally giving us the legal authorities and the resources to detain and remove illegal immigrant families all together and bring them back to their country.
There you get the president yesterday calling on Congress to enact new legislation regarding the separation of children from their parents on our southern border and immigration reform in general. Tom Homan is acting director of ICE. He joins us right now from the D.C. Bureau. Tom, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
What do people need to know regarding this? Because there is such an outroar about this separation, which I understand has been on the books for a long time.
Yes, it has. And let's talk about something no one's talking about. When you see these images of Health and Human Services, these children being cared for by the government, do you know who the vast majority of these children are? They're not part of a family unit. These weren't children taken away from their parents. These are children that were smuggled into this country by criminal organizations. So these parents already separated themselves. Most of these kids get released to an illegal alien parent or relative here in the United States. The decision was made by that family to put that child in the trunk of a car or back of a tractor trailer, hire a criminal organization to transport that child to the United States. But the U.S. government's a bad guy. We actually take pretty good care of these children that come in our custody. So that's not being talked about who these children really are.
Right. So let's say, just to have round numbers, if I don't believe the Homeland Security Secretary, and I do, she says over 12,000 have come here recently. Out of the 12,000, only 2,000 have been separated, 2,000 plus now, 2,300 and some have been separated from their families. So do you think that process with the 2,300, would you label that humane?
I would say that we care for these people very well. Look, I've said it 100 times. I've done a lot of interviews. Separating families is unfortunate. It's sad, but we got to enforce the law. American families, and this is something you don't hear either. American families get separated every day when someone's prosecuted, arrested, and criminally charged with a crime. It's just that's the way the system works. Now these parents, they don't have to be separated. They can enter through a port of entry and not be separated. But they made the choice to enter the country illegally, which is a violation of law. This president, this attorney general, this secretary, and this director, we've had enough. We're going to enforce the law. You can't ask a United States Border Patrol agent to stand in that line, watch someone violate the law, then go commit immigration fraud to be released into society. The underlying problem here that we're trying to address, let's be clear to the American people what's happening. Until the zero tolerance policy, we got families coming up, they're claiming fear and persecution. They are coached what to say, very low bar, then they get released. Many of them don't show up in court, and when they do show up in court, they fail to leave. 80% of them are losing their cases. They fail to leave, now they're in society, and now 10 years from now, we'll find them, they'll have a U.S. citizen child, and everybody's going to be outraged. Why'd you arrest somebody who's been here 10 years and have a U.S. citizen child? We have to stop sending the message to the rest of the world, it's okay to violate the laws of this country and go hide out successfully, and you're fine. That's not the message we want to send. People are dying coming to this country, and we keep enticing them by ignoring the rule of law.
Thomas, can you, just to kind of piggyback on what Brian just asked you, I know you've been asked by other networks if this is humane, what's happening to these children. I want you to answer that, please, and then also tell me what happens to these kids. We've heard they're reunited with their parents after 20 days. Can you tell us more about that process, too?
First of all, it's not inhumane. What's inhumane is putting your child in the trunk of a car. What's inhumane is taking your child and crossing that river. If they want to see images that's inhumane, I invite any reporter to come to my office. I'll show you some images. I'll show you an image of a 5-year-old little boy that died in his father's arms in the back of a tractor trailer because he suffocated to death. I'll show you that image. I'll show you images I have in my office of people that have died trying to make this journey because they're working with a criminal smuggling organization. That's inhumane. The United States government takes very good care of these children. If anybody goes to these facilities are well cared for. And as far as the reunification of families, as soon as that parent is addressed by the U.S. magistrate and answers to his criminal charges, we have a process with Health and Human Services to reunite these families.
Right. I saw a number this morning, Tom, on Axios. I think it said the federal government spends something like $775 on each one of these kids per day in these tent cities. So let me ask you this. You've been in law enforcement your whole career. You know that if you listen to the Democrats, the president could change the law and just say, hey, ICE guys, don't enforce the law. Or Congress could do something. Right now, there are a couple of bills being considered. A couple more are being written. What's your message to the members of Congress who could hold the answer in their hands?
Stop vilifying the men and women of the U.S. Border Patrol and ICE agents. These are American heroes that put it on the line for this country every day. And they're enforcing the laws that you, Congress, enacted. Congress needs to do their job. They can fix it. The president's right on point on this. The scenario I just gave you, more and more families are coming. They get lost in society. They refuse to follow a judge's order. If you and I ignored a judge's order, we'd be arrested. People want a different set of rules for illegal aliens, and that shouldn't be the way it is. And as far as, I see a lot of tweets from New York congressmen. How soon they forget what happened in New York at the hands of people that are in the country illegally. We got to have the rule of law in this country. This president is doing his job. He's trying to secure the border. I would think whether you're Republican or Democrat, you want our border secure. And I would think if we get right to the meat and potatoes of this, they want these people to see a judge. They want them to be able to claim fear, and they want the cases heard. And we're willing to do that. But Congress can make one change. Make it legal for us to detain them as a family together until they see a judge. However, once a judge makes that decision, we need to stand by it and not tell ICE agents, you know what, leave them alone. We got to stand by the rule of law. That is our job as a nation.
A lot of these photos are coming out, or descriptions are coming out of what's happening in these facilities, painting a picture that's less than favorable. But there are a lot of pictures that have been out in 2014 and 2013 that show similar situations, and there wasn't. Here we go in 2014. Where was the outrage on that? Kids alone without families. That doesn't seem like the best conditions. I mean, it beats hanging out in the desert. I'm sure it's a lot better than that. Some say this is better than the countries they came from. I'll let all the experts in that area be the judge. But why is there outrage now and not then?
It's political. It's political. Look, I'm a career law enforcement officer. I don't like getting into politics. But bottom line is, I don't think Congress wants to fix it. I think there's a certain segment, those on the Hill, that want this to be an issue. They can easily fix it. If they really want families to stay together, make one change. Make a change to the TVPRA, Trafficking Act. Let us detain families for several weeks until they get to see a judge.
As a
and
unit.
we'll stand by that decision. But they don't want to fix it. They want this to be an issue.
But you know what? Could the president do that with an executive order? Keep the families together, build more facilities, and get them in front of a judge? Or could we immediately turn them around the minute they show up?
The president's hands are tied. There's legislation, there's court decisions on this that limit how long we can detain children. So Congress really can fix it. Congress is placing the blame. Look, I've been doing this 34 years. This immigration has been a problem for 34 years. Congress needs to do the job. Sit down, rather than going down to their dog and pony shows on the southwest border, rather than vilifying the men and women of ICE, rather than calling us Nazis and racists, sit down, do your job, and fix it. One change. Let us detain the families. I want them to have their hearings too. I want them to see a judge. But when we release them, they don't show up in court. Make a process where if they want to make a claim, talk to a judge. But when that decision is made, and most of them are frivolous claims, they need to go home. We did that back in FY14 when this first started, this surge, and when they were seeing the judge, we held them long enough to see a judge. Most of them lost their cases. They got on a plane and went home. The numbers went down. But now they figured out these loopholes. Now they can only detain us for 2 weeks. We can't do the process that quick. Get released in society. That is an enticement for more illegal entry. And the American people need to understand that. They're being fed a falsehood here by many people in the media and the Hill. And it's just really sad where we're at as a country on this issue.
Well, Tom, we thank you very much for sharing your expertise with us on this Wednesday morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Coming up, call it a Windy City washout. Many Chicago homeowners are struggling to stay above water. Are the city's liberal policies to blame, as some say? The property man, Bob Massey, here to discuss that next.
And it's an American Eagle Day, and we're celebrating with an American Eagle that has a very special connection to the President of the United States. The symbol of freedom, live straight ahead. And that's live, that's not tape.
Every day, America, a little time. What a great crowd, yeah!
Time now for some quick headlines. First up, Ambassador Nikki Haley pulling the United States out of the UN Human Rights Council, calling it a cesspool of political bias. National Security Advisor John Bolton joined us earlier with this.
This decision, in many respects, has been decades in the making. We have a constitution, we make our share of mistakes, and we correct our mistakes. That's what this is about, self-government.
Ambassador Haley says the U.S. is open to rejoining the Human Rights Council if the problems are fixed. And Kansas's Democratic Party is calling out one of their own to drop out for the race for Attorney General. It comes after this disturbing poster showing Wonder Woman lassoing a police officer came to light. Sarah Swain claims it depicts a female superhero forcing the truth from an officer. In a statement, she says, "I am not anti-law enforcement, I am pro-truth, and I do not condone violence in any form." All right, Ainsley.
Chicago's housing market isn't recovering like the rest of the country. There's a new report from the real estate website Zillow, and it shows 15.5% of homeowners have negative equity, and 20% of Chicago's underwater homeowners owe at least twice as much as their homes are worth. So let's bring in the host of Property Man, Bob Massey. He's also a Fox News legal analyst. Bob, thanks for being with us.
Sure.
Now, I know Chicago, known to be a very liberal city. Is that part of the problem? And why is Chicago not rebounding from the housing market? Or crisis,
Great
I should
city
say.
as we know, but the problem is, Ainsley, that with the politics that's there and the amount of crime and the blighted areas where a lot of this is being affected, it's actually affecting the overall values of Chicago. Now, you have beautiful areas it's always going to appreciate, but the overall way that they've handled the problem with crime, the fact that we see how many murders there are every year is not good for any city, and surely there is an effect on the value of real estate, particularly in the blighted areas.
Yeah, it's not very attractive when you know the crime rate is the way it is. Why are underwater homeowners in a bind? How did they get there? How do they owe? They're owing more than their house is worth, and the study says sometimes twice as much.
The thing that's really sad, it's 2018, we're still talking about underwater property. And the bottom line is they're stuck because the only way they get it back to where they have to have value, they got to put money into it. So if your house is worth $300,000 and you owe $500,000 or $150,000 and it's only worth $100,000, you have to come up with that difference to get it back to where it should be. That's a lot of money. People don't have it. The economy in that area, again, has been affected. And as a result, this is why you have this report that's come out. This fabulous city of Chicago is being affected by so many political issues, as well as, and the effect is this underwater property in 2018. I mean, this sounds like 10 years ago, honestly, and it's a shame that it's happening.
Bob, really quickly, how do you get out of that negative situation?
The only way you could do it is you double up your mortgage payments. You call up your lender and say, listen, what's my value? Try to find out the value and try to figure out how much more you have to pay every month in order to bring it back to value. That's all you could do.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Tune into The Property Man. It's on Fridays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on FBN. Thanks, Bob. Have a good one. It is American Eagle Day, and we are celebrating with an eagle that has a very special connection to the president. The symbol of freedom is live in our studio straight ahead. But first, let's check in with Bill Hemmer to find out what's coming up on his show at the top of the hour. Hey, Bill.
Rockin' morning. Immigration, will that take a turn today? The Russia matter seems it clearly took a change yesterday. America's A-team is locked and loaded. Alberto Gonzalez is our headliner today. And Rudy Giuliani, the day after that IG hearing, come join Sandra and me in 10 minutes. We'll see you then. Top of the hour in America's Newsroom.
The soaring symbol of our nation flew into our studio this morning to celebrate. Today is American Eagle Day.
We are joined for a very special visit by Uncle Sam the Eagle and Master Falconer Jonathan Wood. Jonathan, thanks for being back with us.
Great to be here with you guys. This show is for the birds, let me tell you.
Now that bird is famous. That is the bird that was on the cover of Time magazine with Donald Trump.
You bet, yeah. President Trump has made this bird very famous, and he's made this country great again, which is very cool. I know he loves watching the show, so thumbs up. But anyway, yeah, I've had this bird 25 years. He's had a lot of fame, but not until he really met up with our president.
Wow. So how long do they live for? 25 years?
You know,
Incredible.
they would probably never live 25 years out in the wild. In captivity, they can live twice as long. So we think he's about 30 right now. He could live to be 50. And the reason is, you know, they get older. You know, from athletics, you're out of your prime. You're never going to survive out there.
I'm still in my prime. But for others, I'm thinking.
Does he have a girlfriend?
Does he have what?
A girlfriend?
He used to have a girlfriend named Betsy.
Oh, nice.
Jonathan,
Betsy Ross, Uncle Sam.
Betsy Ross, was it really?
She's not with me anymore.
Jonathan, you have 80 birds. Why is, you know a lot about birds, obviously. Why is the eagle America's symbol?
You know, you look at that. Thank God the founding fathers. I would love to be a fly in the room when Ben Franklin wanted the turkey to be our national bird. And thank God he got voted out.
He had
Can you
one
imagine?
bad idea.
I'd be here with a turkey. You know, turkey looks great with a checkered tablecloth with some potatoes around it. But there's something about this bird. It's only found in North America. It's only found in this country. And it's a stunning bird, especially, you know, we have an American flag with this bird. We have two great symbols. We just had Flag Day last week. We have the most beautiful flag in the world, and we have this bird as the most beautiful symbol.
Real quickly, what's your connection to Nikon?
Nikon, well, I promote birding, bird watching, or we call it birding now. And you got to do that with great optics. So Nikon is the trusted name in optics, and I've been with them for years, doing birding festivals. This is how you get to see these birds. Like right here in New York, we've got a pair of bald eagles nesting in New York City.
That's right.
Wow.
People can go and pull their car. There's the birds right there.
Well,
So it's
Jonathan,
kinda
we
cool.
thank you for bringing Uncle Sam on American
Thanks,
Eagle
Jonathan.
Day. Thank
Great
you.
being here.